The screen is shaking. You hear a child scream, sharp, terrified, cutting through the quiet of a suburban afternoon. The camera jolts as it catches a blur of motion, a woman, Karen, shoving a little girl toward the edge of an old stone. Well, then a sickening silence. A dull thud. The camera drops. Chaos erupts. Someone yells, "Call 911!" A neighbor runs into frame, panicked. Sirens wail in the distance. In a sudden cut, heavy military boots slam onto the pavement. Helicopters roar overhead. Armed soldiers move in formation, guns raised. Not police, military. The HOA leader stands frozen, her eyes wide with fear as she's surrounded. "Where is the girl?" a soldier shouts. No one answers. The screen cuts to black, and a chilling voiceover says, "3 minutes ago, I lost my daughter. Now the government's involved. And this is only the beginning." We moved into the neighborhood 6 months ago, hopeful for a fresh start. The houses were neatly aligned, lawns manicured to perfection, and children's laughter echoed down the cul-de-sac. Just the kind of place we thought would be perfect for our daughter, Lily. She's 5 years old, the kind of child who waves at every butterfly and draws flowers on the sidewalk with rainbow chalk. It didn't take long for us to meet Karen. She was the self-declared queen of the HOA, clipboard in hand, lips permanently pressed into a judgmental line. At first, it was subtle. Reminders about trash cans, passive notes about the color of our porch lights. But then came the warnings. A letter taped to our door about Lily leaving her tricycle too close to the grass. A complaint filed over sidewalk. Chalk defacing common property. Lily was crushed. Her drawings meant the world to her. I tried reasoning with Karen, asking for understanding, but she insisted it was about standards and community image. Neighbors whispered about her but never crossed her. She had power, and she liked reminding everyone of it. I started to notice Karen watching us, standing outside just a few seconds too long, her eyes following Lily as she played in the yard. There was something unnerving about her presence, something that made me lock our doors a little earlier every night. My husband thought I was overreacting, that maybe Karen was just an uptight busybody, but deep down, I felt something darker lurking beneath her smile. Lily, oblivious to all of it, continued to play, picking dandelions and chasing birds. She adored the small garden we had started in the backyard and would spend hours talking to the plants like they were her friends. It was her little sanctuary. But with every passing day, I noticed Karen's behavior getting stranger, more controlling, more invasive. She once stopped Lily mid-play to scold her for touching the community flower bed. Another time, she accused us of allowing Lily to trespass when she simply retrieved a ball from the sidewalk. Something wasn't right. The neighborhood, once full of promise, had started to feel like a cage. I felt helpless, trapped between protecting my daughter and trying not to escalate things. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. I thought she was just a bitter woman obsessed with rules. I didn't realize she was capable of real harm. It didn't take long for the situation to spiral into something much darker. What started as petty HOA complaints quickly turned into something more personal, something targeted. The first time Karen yelled at Lily, it took me by surprise. I was watching from the kitchen window when I saw Lily skipping across our front yard, chalk in hand, humming to herself. Karen stormed over from across the street, face tight with anger, and snapped something I couldn't hear. Lily froze. Her little shoulders tensed. I ran outside, heart racing, and caught the tail end of Karen's rant. "Control your child before someone else has to." I was stunned. She looked me dead in the eye, completely unbothered, as if she had every right to speak to a 5-year-old. Like that. That night, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA. I documented everything, times, dates, even the location. A week later, I got a reply not from the board, but from Karen herself, on HOA letterhead, stating that our household had violated community decorum on multiple occasions. Included were photographs, Lily's tricycle half on the walkway, chalk drawings near the curb, a small potted plant we had placed on our doorstep, which she claimed disrupted the neighborhood's aesthetic integrity. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't about rules. This was personal. I decided to install a small security camera above our porch, not because I expected anything severe to happen, but because I needed proof. What I captured in the following weeks shook me. Karen wasn't just watching us. She was stalking us. Multiple nights in a row, the footage showed her standing across the street, arms crossed, staring directly into our windows. Once, just after midnight, she walked up to our front steps, stared at the camera for 10 full seconds, then turned and walked away. No note, no explanation. My husband and I confronted her in broad daylight, asking why she was surveilling our home. She smiled, calm as ever, and said she was monitoring for violations. That word again, violations. As if our lives were rules to be broken, and she was the one holding the penalty flag. When I sent the footage to the HOA board, hoping to get someone, anyone, to step in, I received a cold, automated response, thanking me for my concern and reminding me to respect neighborly boundaries. Meanwhile, Lily started showing signs of fear. She didn't want to play outside anymore. She asked if Karen was going to take her toys. One night, she crawled into bed with us, shaking, saying someone had knocked on her window. We lived on the ground floor. I checked the footage. There was a shadow, indistinct but real. That was when the panic truly set in. I began escorting Lily to and from school myself. I changed all our locks. I even considered moving, but we had just sunk all our savings into this house. Every time I passed Karen on the street, she smiled. That same cold, tight-lipped smile that said, "I'm winning." And somehow, in the eyes of the HOA and most of the neighborhood, she still maintained her image as the perfect civic-minded resident, the woman who organized trash pickup days and hosted block parties. I started to feel like I was the problem, like I was losing my grip. But I knew what I saw. I knew what my daughter felt, and I knew what Karen was capable of. I kept pushing. I took the footage to the local precinct, but they said it wasn't enough to take action. Nothing criminal. I reached out to other neighbors, and a few admitted they'd had problems with Karen too, but no one wanted to go public. "It's just not worth the trouble," one woman whispered to me. But it was worth the trouble. This wasn't just neighborly tension. This was psychological warfare, and my daughter was caught in the middle. Every moment we spent outside felt like walking through a minefield. I began to write everything down, like a case file. Not because I thought anyone would help, but because I needed to hold on to the truth. Deep inside, I had the sinking feeling that something terrible was coming, and that when it did, no one would believe us unless we had everything, every word, every scream, every shadow, recorded. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the lawn as I stood in the kitchen, watching Lily through the window. She was in her favorite yellow dress, twirling in the backyard, talking to her stuffed bunny like it was her best friend. Her laugh, light and pure, floated into the house through the open screen door. I was just finishing up dishes, planning to join her for a short walk before dinner. I turned away for what couldn't have been more than a minute. When I looked back, she was gone. My heart dropped. I rushed outside, calling her name, the panic already rising in my throat. No answer. The backyard was empty, eerily still. Her bunny lay near the flower bed, face down in the dirt. That's when I checked the porch camera. The footage showed Lily playing alone. A few minutes later, Karen appeared on the edge of the frame, her body language tense, her steps deliberate. She didn't say a word, but walked straight toward Lily. The video was grainy, but I could see Karen lean down, grab Lily by the arm. Lily resisted. She tried to pull away. There was no audio, but you could see the fear in her eyes. And then, suddenly, Both of them moved out of frame toward the back of the yard, behind the old maple tree where the well sat, sealed for decades, long forgotten by most in the neighborhood. I felt the blood drain from my face. I dropped the phone and sprinted outside, straight toward the tree. The area around the well was disturbed, dirt scuffed, small footprints in the soil. The stone well had always been covered with a rusted grate, chained shut for safety. But now, the chain was snapped, the cover tossed aside. I screamed her name again and again, my voice echoing into the growing silence. Then I heard it, a faint, muffled sob coming from deep below. I peered into the darkness and saw nothing but black. My knees gave out. I fumbled for my phone, dialed 911 with shaking hands, barely able to form words. My daughter, she's in a well. She was pushed. The dispatcher tried to calm me, but I couldn't stop sobbing. I kept shouting her name, trying to tell her I was there, that help was coming. Within minutes, neighbors began gathering. Some stood in shock, others pulled out their phones. Karen was nowhere to be seen. I pointed to the well, trying to explain, but people just stared. Some asked if Lily had fallen. I told them she didn't fall. She was pushed. By Karen. A few people looked skeptical, others looked scared. One neighbor quietly said, "Karen left a few minutes ago. She looked upset." I begged them to check the security footage, to believe me, but time felt like it was slipping through my fingers. The seconds stretched, everyone heavier than the last, then the sirens. Police cars rolled in first, followed by fire and rescue. I ran to them, screaming, guiding them to the well. The officers tried to keep me back as emergency workers rigged ropes and lights. I could hear Lily's cries growing weaker. A firefighter called down, trying to keep her conscious. "Sweetheart, can you hear me? We're coming to get you." I stood frozen, arms wrapped around myself, unable to do anything but watch. Then, suddenly, over the sound of sirens and orders being barked, came a new, thunderous noise. Helicopter blades. The sky darkened as a massive aircraft descended above the neighborhood. Military trucks rumbled in seconds later. Men in tactical gear jumped out, armed and moving fast. Confusion erupted. One officer tried to block their path, but the soldiers pushed forward. The lead officer approached me directly. "Ma'am, where's the child?" he asked urgently, pointed, still dazed, to the well. He nodded once, turned to his team. "Go, now." It all happened so fast. The military presence, the speed, the precision. It was like something out of a movie. But it was real. And somehow, they knew. Somehow they were here for her. I didn't have time to process how or why. All I could do was stare at the well, at the hole that had swallowed my daughter, and pray that the nightmare wasn't about to turn into something even worse. My screams wouldn't stop. Even as I dialed 911 with shaking fingers, even as I begged the dispatcher to hurry, I couldn't stop crying out Lily's name like it might pull her back from the darkness below. My voice was hoarse, ragged, the edges of my vision blurring, with panic. Within minutes, people began to gather, neighbors I barely knew, some in slippers, some in suits fresh from work. A few rushed to the scene out of genuine concern, but others just stood there, recording on their phones like this was entertainment, a break in their perfect suburban monotony. I could hear them whispering, asking each other if Lily had fallen, if it was an accident. I wanted to scream at them, she was pushed, but the words tangled in my throat. Then, just as the fire truck's lights crested the hill, I saw her, Karen, calm, collected. She walked up from the street like she had just returned from a leisurely stroll. She made no eye contact, didn't rush, didn't ask what had happened. When someone pointed at her and said, "Weren't you just with the girl?" she blinked in surprise and smiled thinly as if the very idea were ridiculous. "I haven't seen that child today," she said in a steady voice, turning slightly toward the crowd. "Maybe you should ask her mother about where she's been." The way she said it, it wasn't just denial, It was accusation, an attempt to flip the narrative, to cast me as the neglectful one, and for a moment, I saw it work. A few people exchanged uncertain glances, a few even lowered their phones. That's when the police arrived, sirens howling. 2 officers rushed toward me, asking what had happened. I pointed toward the well, tried to explain, my voice trembling and fast. She pushed my daughter into the well. I saw it. On my security cam, she grabbed her and dragged her there. The officers listened, nodding, but I could feel their caution, their hesitation. One of them glanced toward Karen, who was already speaking to another officer with that same cool expression. "She's been unstable lately," I heard her say, motioning subtly toward me. "Obsessed with me, accused me of watching her. You can check with the HOA." I couldn't believe it. In the middle of a nightmare, she was planting seeds of doubt. One of the officers even stepped aside to talk into his radio, clearly unsure of what to do. I wanted to grab him by the collar and drag him to the well myself. But before I could say another word, something shifted. The radio on the officer's shoulder crackled with a sudden sharp burst of static. Then a voice came through. Not a local dispatcher. It was deeper, calmer, full of authority. "Be advised, Federal Response Team en route. Priority Alpha, hold perimeter, and do not engage." The officer stiffened. "Say again?" he asked, clearly caught off guard. The reply was short. "Military clearance verified. Stand down until handover." And just like that, confusion spread. The officers exchanged glances. One asked me, "Ma'am, do you or your family have military connections?" I nodded slowly, still unable to comprehend what was happening. "My husband was special projects. He embedded something in her toy years ago for emergencies," I mumbled. I hadn't thought about it in years. It was a precaution, a just in case. That never seemed necessary. Until now. Then came the roar. A massive shadow loomed overhead as a military helicopter swooped in low above the houses, sending leaves and dust flying. Neighbors ducked, covering their heads. A convoy of black SUVs followed behind, skidding to a halt as soldiers in tactical. Gear poured out, weapons raised but not aimed. They moved with purpose, no hesitation. The lead soldier, a tall man with a hardened face, approached me. "Target is alive?" he asked. I nodded desperately. "In the well." He turned to his team. "Go now! Pull her out! Sweep perimeter!" Karen tried to speak. "Excuse me, this is private property." But one of the soldiers raised a hand, silencing her with a single look. They weren't here to ask permission. They were here on orders. And suddenly, the power Karen had wielded for so long, the fear, the control, the false politeness, was gone. She was just a woman standing in the middle of a war she never saw coming. And I, the mother she had tried to silence, stood surrounded by soldiers, finally watching justice arrive with thunder. In its footsteps, the sound hit first, a deep, bone-rattling thump in the sky. The crowd looked up in confusion as a black military helicopter roared overhead, blades slicing the air like thunder. Dust and loose debris swirled in cyclones around us. People ducked, shielding their eyes, some backing away in fear. The police, officers already tense, reached for their radios, clearly caught off guard. No one had called in the military. No one expected this. Within seconds, 3 armored SUVs tore around the corner, tires screeching, coming to a hard stop just feet from the gathered crowd. Doors flung open, and out stepped fully armed soldiers in black tactical gear, helmets down, faces unreadable. No insignia, no hesitation. They moved fast, surrounding the perimeter like they had trained for this moment 100 times before. Karen's expression twisted from confusion to alarm. "What is this?" she shouted, voice cracking. No one answered her. The commanding officer stepped forward, tall, focused, his eyes scanning the scene before settling on me. "You're the mother?" he asked. I nodded, barely able to speak. He reached into a pouch and pulled out a small handheld scanner, then held it up. It beeped once, sharp and loud. "Signal confirmed. Target is below." The soldiers rushed to the well without another word, pulling gear from their packs, cables, lights, sensors. One of them looked up at the officer. "Vital signs faint but present, sir." I felt my knees give out, tears streaming down my face. She was alive. She was still alive. Karen stepped forward, voice shrill now, panicked. "This is private. Property. You have no right." But the officer turned to her slowly and said, "Ma'am, step back. Now." She opened her mouth to argue, but the sight of 5 rifles aimed downward was enough to silence her. I turned to the officer, still dazed. "How did you know? How did you find her?" He looked at me, eyes softening slightly. "Your husband's clearance flagged a dormant asset. Embedded GPS tracker in your daughter's toy transmitted an emergency distress signal 3 minutes ago. We were already in the air." I stared at him, mind spinning. The bunny. The toy bunny she never let go of. It had saved her life. In the blur of noise, dust, and flashing lights, I stood there with only one thought. The woman who tried to destroy us had no idea who she was messing with. The soldiers wasted no time. As the commanding officer gave a sharp nod, 2 operatives dropped thermal sensors into the dark mouth of the well, while another attached a rope to a harness and prepared to descend. The entire area was a blur of rapid commands and precise movements. The screen on the thermal scanner flickered, then glowed red. "Target located," a soldier said. "Child is unconscious but warm, still breathing." I let out a sob of pure relief, hands pressed to my mouth. One soldier clipped into his harness and rappelled down swiftly, his silhouette vanishing into the blackness below. The rest of the team maintained a tight perimeter. Lights shone into the well, illuminating stone walls and mist. The minutes crawled by, heavy with dread. Then, finally, a voice crackled through the comms. "I've got her. Preparing lift." Slowly the rope began to rise. As it reached the surface, I fell to my knees. Her small body emerged, wrapped in the arms of the soldier. Her yellow dress torn and smeared with dirt, her face pale, but her chest rising. She clutched her toy bunny, miraculously still in her hands, as though it had protected her. A medic rushed forward, checking her vitals and placing an oxygen mask over her face. I tried to reach her, but the medics asked me to wait while they stabilized her. I could barely breathe, my heart breaking and swelling all at once. But even in that moment of rescue, the chaos wasn't over. From the edge of the crowd, Karen screamed, "You don't know what you're doing! That child! She was corrupted! She was planted here!" The madness in her voice pierced the air. 2 soldiers moved to detain her, but she fought back with unexpected strength, clawing and swinging, screaming accusations about conspiracies and secret messages. "You think I didn't know? They told me she was dangerous. I was protecting all of you." Her words were frantic, nonsensical, as if her reality had cracked wide open. The soldiers restrained her quickly, pinning her to the ground as she thrashed and spit. One of the military officials stepped forward, holding a small tablet and reading from it aloud. "Karen Davis. Subject has multiple sealed records flagged by federal agencies. Unresolved psychological assessments, 2 prior incidents flagged as domestic disturbances, and 1 note of interest from a surveillance task force dated 5 years ago." The crowd fell into stunned silence. Some neighbors stared, mouths open. Others turned away, unable to reconcile. The woman they knew with the truth being laid bare. She had hidden behind her authority, behind the HOA, behind a facade of order and control. But underneath, she was something far more dangerous, paranoid, unstable, and now exposed. As she was loaded into one of the black SUVs, still shouting, still convinced she had done the right thing, I finally stepped closer to my daughter. The medic looked at me and nodded. "She's going to be okay," She was lucky. A few more minutes. He didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need him to. I sat beside her stretcher, clutching her tiny hand, whispering her name over and over. She stirred faintly, eyelids fluttering. My tears flowed freely now, not out of fear, but overwhelming relief. The nightmare was ending. She was safe, and Karen would never hurt anyone again. The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft beep of monitors and the rhythmic whoosh of the oxygen machine. Lily lay asleep, her tiny frame nearly swallowed by the hospital bed, bruises faintly visible on her arms, an IV taped to her hand. I sat beside her, gripping her fingers gently, as if afraid she'd slip away again if I let go. The trauma hadn't fully sunk in, not yet. My mind kept replaying the moment they pulled her from the well, her body limp, her bunny clutched tightly to her chest. The images came in flashes. Karen's cold stare, the look of absolute madness in her eyes, the roar of military helicopters, the sound of my own voice cracking as I screamed for my daughter. And now, in this sterile room filled with the soft hum of machines and the scent of antiseptic, the adrenaline had faded, leaving behind a hollow ache that filled every part of me. I had tried to be strong, to hold it together for Lily, but now that she was safe, now that the danger had passed, I broke. I buried my face into the side of the bed and cried, not quietly or politely, but fully and without shame. My body shook with every sob. The nurses gave me space. They had seen this kind of pain before, the kind that comes after the storm, when the wreckage is finally visible. Outside that room, the world was reeling. Karen had been arrested on multiple charges: attempted murder, child endangerment, obstruction of justice, and a slew of other federal charges related to her sealed psychological history. The military's presence had revealed more than just a buried tracker. It had uncovered her connections to previous incidents, complaints that had mysteriously disappeared, reports never followed up. It turned out Karen had a pattern. And this time she picked the wrong family. The community, once so enamored by her authority, her order, her neat rules and petty control, was in collective shock. Neighbors who once smiled politely and sided with her began distancing themselves. Her closest allies on the HOA board resigned within days. Meetings were canceled. The association began disbanding under pressure and scrutiny. Lawsuits were threatened. Media vans appeared, parked near the entrance of the cul-de-sac, reporters eager to cover the story of the HOA leader-turned-would-be killer and the child rescued by military intervention. I didn't care about the cameras or the headlines. All that mattered was Lily, her breath, her heartbeat, the way her fingers occasionally twitched in mine. She was alive. She was recovering. That was enough. When she finally opened her eyes, dazed and confused, I leaned in and whispered, "You're safe now, baby. Mama's here." She looked at me, blinking slowly, and said nothing. But she squeezed my hand just once, and I knew she remembered, knew she'd held on for me, for us. There would be a long road ahead, therapy, healing, nightmares that would linger. But we had survived. And survival was everything. The neighbors began stopping by quietly. Some left cards, others flowers. A few knocked, offering tearful apologies, admitting they had looked away for too long. It didn't matter. Forgiveness wasn't my focus. I wasn't angry at them. I was just done being afraid, done being quiet. This home, which once felt like a trap, was now a place of reckoning. The mask had been pulled off, the truth had risen. And for the first time since we moved in, I didn't feel powerless. I felt seen. As for Karen, she would never come back here. She would never harm my daughter again. She had tried to break us, but instead, she exposed herself. And in doing so, she set us free. The screen fades in from black, soft morning light, spilling across Lily's hospital bed as gentle piano music begins to play. Her eyes are open now, tired, a little distant but calm. She's sitting upright with a stuffed animal in her lap. A new one this time, gifted by one of the nurses. The old bunny is beside her too, carefully stitched and cleaned. I sit at her bedside, brushing her hair away from her face as she quietly colors in a sketchbook. Red and yellow crayon marks slowly filling a page. My voice begins in a soft voiceover, steady but heavy with reflection. People think that when danger comes, it announces itself, that you'll know it by the sound of footsteps or the scream in the night. But sometimes it smiles at you from across the street, leaves polite notes on your door, and pretends to care about your lawn. The scene shifts to clips of our neighborhood, once pristine and uniform, now scattered with subtle signs of change. Karen's house, now empty, sits behind police tape. A moving truck drives off in the distance. The HOA sign has been taken, down from the community bulletin board, replaced with handwritten notes of support and apology from neighbors who once remained silent. We see Lily walking through our backyard, hand in mine, hesitant but brave. She stops to pick a dandelion just like she used to. A small smile breaks across her face as she holds it up to the sky. They called her dangerous, I continue, my voice steady. But the only danger that lived on this street wore a name tag and hid behind rules. Cut to footage of Karen in court, shackled, her face pale and expression hollow. The judge reads out the charges and she says nothing. Her once sharp tongue is silent, her authority stripped bare. A news anchor's voice overlays the image briefly. Karen Davis, former HOA president, will face a full trial after being deemed mentally competent, charged with attempted murder and endangering the welfare of a minor. Then the montage softens. We see Lily in a small therapy room, stacking blocks with a specialist, speaking softly, nodding when asked questions. She's healing. We both are. I speak again. Healing doesn't come all at once. It's not loud. It's the quiet mornings. The first time your child sleeps through the night again, the moment she laughs without flinching, it's learning to breathe without fear. The music swells gently as the screen shows neighbors coming together, repainting fences, planting flowers, even helping repair the well that had once nearly become a grave. It's sealed now, safely covered, but a small plaque sits beside it. Not a memorial, but a reminder. The plaque reads, "Truth comes to light." The community is different now, a little humbler, a little kinder. The old masks have been discarded, and people look each other in the eye again. We see kids playing in the street, chalk drawings on the sidewalk, bright, messy, joyful. One of the drawings shows a girl with a cape, a big yellow sun above her. Lily's doing. She kneels over, it focused, unafraid. I used to think silence kept us safe, the voiceover continues. But all it ever did was protect the wrong people. Speaking out, no matter how small your voice may feel, is how you reclaim your power. It's how you tell the world, I see you. I won't pretend anymore. The final images roll by. Lily holding hands with another little girl at the park. Me sipping coffee on the porch watching her, no longer anxious but aware, ready. A neighbor waves as they walk past. We wave back. Life moves on, but it doesn't forget. It rebuilds with scars and wisdom and strength. The music softens to a near whisper as the screen slowly fades to black. In the final moments, my voice returns one last time, calm, certain, and strong. She tried to break my family. Instead, she exposed everything. Then silence. The screen holds still for a moment before the credits begin to roll. If this story gripped you, disturbed you, or opened your eyes to the darker side of perfect neighborhoods, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the HOA Stories. We bring you real, raw, and chilling tales from behind the white picket fences, where control, corruption, and silence hide in plain sight. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the bell icon so you never miss another twisted tale. Because in this neighborhood, the rules are never what they seem.